4 times a week. We often have special guests who are brought in to speak, whether it's on the importance of faith, leadership, or service. It's really my great pleasure to introduce this morning's speaker. Al Higginbotham represents District 4 of the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners. He is a native Floridian hailing from Plant City, and he's been married to his wife, Devin, for 33 years. They have 2 grown children, Alan and Caleb. Alan graduated from the University of Florida with an emphasis on South American government. He worked in Washington, D.C. as a congressional aide, and later as an executive assistant for the Florida State Treasurer and Insurance Commission. In 1995, on a hunting trip, a freak accident left Al paralyzed from the waist down. Yet he overcame this tremendous adversity and actually wrote a book about his experience in 2001, a book called By Faith, I'm Still Standing. Al was first elected to the District 4 County Commission seat in 2006 and re-elected again in 2008 and 2012. While in office, he has met with representatives from over 30 countries to increase our community's international footprint. Just last year, August 27th, Al summited to the top of White Mountain in the Sierra Nevada mountain range, and successfully reaching the 14,150-foot peak. He became the first person with a disability to ever climb White Mountain. He has served as chairman of the County Commission, the Environmental Protection Commission, the Hillsborough County Emergency Policy Group, and the Tourist Development Council. He currently serves on more than 10 other boards and councils, including the Florida Aquarium, Hillsborough River Interlocal Planning Board, the Agency on Bay Management, Economic Development Corporation's Manufacturing Task Force, and the Tampa Bay Defense Alliance Board of Directors. Just this past summer, I was fortunate to be seated next to Al at a function in Ybor City honoring an alumnus of ours, Richard Gonzar. That's where I met him, and we began to talk. And by the end of the dinner, I was convinced that I wanted him to come here to Convocation to speak. Met him another time, another public function in the past few weeks, and I'm really happy to present to you and ask you to join me in giving a warm tight welcome to Commissioner Al Higginbotham.
I'll move this in. Good morning. I take it this is an all-boys school. And I think, Father, I was the one who was fortunate to sit with you at dinner that night because he didn't eat his dessert and I got it. But rather than politics, this morning I want to talk about just a plain old guy from Plant City, an old farm boy who never thought that he would run for public office. Last thing that was ever on my mind. But I was an outdoorsman, a lot like Coach McEnany. I like to deer hunt. And had left public office, was the youngest aide to, was actually a speechwriter for a congressman and then for our state treasurer. And got tired of that and moved to Orlando, opened a real estate company, and was blessed at a young age to sell the company, and was moving out west to Wyoming to get off grid. And that means check out and become agrarian again. And my family business was farming, and it was struggling, and some friends prevailed and said, you could fly to Wyoming, Al, anytime you like. Why don't you move back to Plant City and raise your children here? And both our children went to Lakeland Christian. And see if you can't bring the family farming business back around. And in my line of work, rather than take your customers or your clients to the opera or to dinner or golfing, mine were outdoorsmen. And so I had taken some clients on a hunting trip in Eufaula, Alabama, which was known as a place to hunt for trophy deer. Had misgivings about the trip. I was, as a dad, was very driven. My focus was on money. Are you listening? My focus was on money. I had a great marriage, taught Sunday school at my church, had 2 normal kids. They were, at that time, 10 and 8 years old. But I was focused on making money. The Monday before, I went on this hunting trip, and I don't tell you this to be boastful, but to give you kind of a benchmark. I signed a purchase order for a Lotus. I was looking for an airplane to get to my mountain home a little quicker. We had the motor homes. We had the sports cars. We had all the trappings of someone who was of means. Little did I know that on Friday all that would change. It's now Thursday evening, January 19th, 1995, and we'd had dinner, and I look out the window and I see that it's going to be a cold one, and so I turn in early. Set the alarm for 4 o'clock in the morning. Even for an old farm boy, that's early. But when the alarm goes off, I look out the window and I see the frost is set hard on the windows in the trucks, and I put on my long johns and my favorite LL Bean camouflage thin-insulated hunting outfit, and we went across the street to breakfast and opened that door, and the cold air rushed in, and I could smell that bacon, and I could see the steam rising off the coffee. I sat down and had me a southern feast. But little did I know that it was going to be my last meal for nearly 2 weeks. What would you have done differently this morning, young men? What would you have done differently at breakfast this morning? What would you have thought different? What would you have said different at the breakfast table if you knew that it may be your last meal? We had our breakfast and went on to the hunting woods, and I got my guests situated, and soon after daylight I hear a gunshot. And I knew from the way the gun sounded that there was an impact, and one of my guests had shot a deer, and about mid-morning I shot one. We had agreed to meet back at the staging area where we had the skinning tree, and it was about half the diameter of the pulpit right here, and it was about half the diameter of the pulpit, and hung our deer in the skinning tree. It was a tree that looked solid and strong on the outside, but on the inside it was rotten to the core. Many times in life we'll make judgments on people or situations or opportunities that look strong on the outside but are rotten. That are strong on the outside and rotten on the inside. Well, as we hung the deer in the tree, in the snap of a finger, it breaks. It comes across my left shoulder and it literally crushed me. As I lay on the ground, I knew that I was dying. And I didn't see pearly gates. I was not standing at a river, and I didn't see bright lights, but I knew that it was time for me to meet my Maker. And I shot off a prayer. It was not fancy or eloquent. It was selfish. I said, God, I want one more chance. I want a chance to be with my wife and kids one more time. Because through our marriage, through raising my kids, I was off and gone on business trips, on business meetings, way too much. Are you listening? And in that instant, I knew that I was going to be okay. And there was something in my heart that said, you're going to walk again. Well, I had the pain and the paralysis that was shooting through my chest and arms and legs. And I looked to my left and looked to the right as this large tree lay on top of me. And I gave my legs the command to move, and nothing happened. But as I said that prayer, there was a peace that overwhelmed me. The pain and of the paralysis left my chest and arms. I knew it was going to be all right, but I forgot to say, hey, God, you know these 3 guys that are with me? Give them the same peace of mind and confidence that I have, because they were panicked. A couple of them started to grab me by the nape of the neck and pull me out from underneath the tree, and I said, don't touch me. I've broken my back and I'm paralyzed. So they called the 911, and about half an hour later, I hear a siren way off in the distance. And as the ambulance got closer, the siren was louder, and I laid there wondering, and I'm not kidding about this. I said, I wonder if I'm going to be able to hear that siren when I'm inside the ambulance. Well, take my word, you don't want to ever be in an ambulance and you do hear the siren. Well, the ambulance arrives and parks not far from me, and I can feel the heat coming off the engine. And out walk 2 attendants, and this one little lady crawls underneath the debris of the tree, and she looks at me and she says, hi, my name's Alice, what's yours? Like this is some kind of social gathering or something. And I said, my name is Al, and she started asking a series of questions to make sure that I had my wits about me and assessing whether or not I was in shock. I was not in shock. She says, Al, we're going to have to cut this tree off of you, and she gathers and makes instructions, and she says, we're going to cut this tree off of you, and she gets a white sheet. And she goes to cover me with this white sheet, and I objected. You see, I just had this near-death experience, and the last thing I wanted was for some stranger out of an ambulance to cover me up with a white sheet. Well, Alice prevailed, and they covered me up with a white sheet. And they started with the chainsaws, and they cut the tree away. And I could feel and smell that chainsaw going to work, and the debris from the tree was pelting me on my face and body. They get the tree off of me, and then she brings a backboard with her help and some of the people now who've gathered and says, on the count of 3, we're going to roll Al over and slip the backboard underneath him. And she gives me a couple of tongue depressors, and she says, I want you to bite down on these because this is going to be very painful. Well, she had won on this deal with the sheet, and I was going to have my way on the tongue depressors. And I said, I don't need them. And so she counts 1, 2, and to this day I can still hear my scream of pain as it echoed through the woods. I don't know how long I was unconscious, but I came to in the ambulance, and I looked at her as we were making our way now to a little emergency